Hello friends, my name is Atul. Welcome to my channel. So I hope the past videos were useful for you and you were able to send those videos or send those links to maximum people so that everyone can be benefited. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and please hit the bell icon. So without wasting any time, let's get started. Point number C, electronic presentations. Electronic presentation has three parts. One is tangible, electronic and authenticate. So tangible means when you are presenting a document, when you are presenting the demand, which is suppose in form of a floppy disk, for example, or a CD compact disk or a pen drive. These three are tangible mediums capable of storing electronic records, and when it is presented to the issuer will be able to generate an electronic record from these systems. They can be classified as an electronic record. Next is electronic, means if you are sending the record through email, for example. So when you are sending this email to the designated mail ID of the issuer, from where the issuer can regenerate the document in maybe PDF form or TIFF or Excel, whatever it is. When the issuer is able to do this, regenerate the document in PDF form or electronic form, acceptable. Both of these are only acceptable when they are authenticated. As per ISP, authenticate means two things. Number one, the identity should be known and information is intact. The identity of the sender should be known. So for example, if the record is sent to the issuer through email, then the email ID can be, for example, if the beneficiary's company is ABC Limited, then the mail ID can be name of the person @ABC Limited. So ABC Limited is the extension which mail of that company carries. So issuer will know that the identity of the person, identity of the party who is making the presentation is known, which is the beneficiary. Next is intact. Whatever the information or attachment is there in that mail is intact and it has not been tampered with. The moment these two things are ensured, the record will be termed as authenticated. Next is electronic signature. As per ISP, electronic signature is, the meaning of electronic signature is you are trying to authenticate something. Okay, so that authentication can be through a letter, character, number or some symbol. So letter means it is quite possible that when you are trying to authenticate a document, you might associate a particular passcode with it, which is protected by a particular numeric code, or there can be a character, number or symbol which would suggest the issuer that once I enter this particular code, the document which will be generated will be an authenticated one. So it is not necessary that signature means that you are actually signing that document. It can also be associated along with the signature. You can also have such kind of authentication means, like you're trying to link that document or associate that document with a particular letter, symbol or any other numeric code which would suggest that once this record is regenerated, it will be an authenticated record. So as it says, electronic signature means letters, characters, numbers or other symbols in electronic form attached to or logically associated with an electronic record that are executed or adopted by a party with present intent to authenticate an electronic record. So this association can be in any manner. You can either have a password protected document and you can give the password of that document to the issuer when you are presenting the document, so that the issuer knows that whatever data is being generated is an authenticate data. So that passcode can also consist of some letter, character, number or symbol. Next is receipt. So what ISP says, a receipt of an electronic record would be either number one, if the record is being sent to, for example, that designated mail ID which is mentioned in the ISP undertaking. So if my undertaking mentions that this document is to be sent to atul.verma@xyz.com, and if the mail is received at my email ID, I will be considering it as a receipt. Or ISP also gives an option to the beneficiary to send the electronic record to any other email ID. For example, that mail is sent to a centralized ID of my branch. So every branch can have a group mail ID. If the document is sent to that group mail ID and I am able to retrieve that document from that group mail ID, then also it will be considered as a receipt of an electronic record. 1.10, which deals with redundant or otherwise undesirable terms. This article basically deals with what all clauses you should refrain, or what all words you should refrain from mentioning in your undertaking. So if there are particular list of words which if mentioned in the undertaking will be disregarded, and some of them would be having some particular meaning. So let's see that. Alright, 1.10. Few of the terms which we saw in article 1.06 are repeated again in 1.10. What 1.10 says is, there are few terms which a standby should not mention, which are some vague terms, but if your standby mentions those terms, then they will be having these respective meanings. First is unconditional or abstract. Your standby should not mention that this is an unconditional undertaking. If these words are mentioned, that means it is still a documentary undertaking. The word unconditional should not be associated with the fact that it will not have any conditions with which it is being restricted and it is a free flowing kind of undertaking. No, if the word unconditional is mentioned, that still means it is documentary in nature. That means you have to present documents to claim under it. Next is absolute. If a standby mentions that this is an absolute undertaking, that means it is irrevocable. Again, which we saw in 1.06. Irrevocable means it cannot be amended or cancelled without the beneficiary's consent. Next is, this standby is a primary undertaking. Primary means it is independent, means it is not dependent on the fact as to whether beneficiary is able to recover the funds from another source, or beneficiary has gone, or whether beneficiary has first tried to utilize the alternate mode of recovery before coming to me or not. Primary means by default beneficiary can come to me and claim for the payment. Next is payable from issuer's own funds. If an undertaking mentions that it is payable from issuer's own funds, that basically means that I will not be dependent on whether I am able to get reimbursement from the applicant or not. If you are submitting a compliant claim under the undertaking to me, I will make payment to you from the funds available with me. It does not matter whether I am getting reimbursement from some party or not. Next is clean or payable on demand. If your SBLC mentions this SBLC is a clean SBLC or it is payable on demand, that does not mean that you will verbally demand and I'll pay, or that does not mean that you need not to demand and I'll pay. even if the SBLC mentions that it is clean or it is payable on demand, it still means that you have to present documents, only then my undertaking will be payable. This presentation should be in line with the terms and conditions of the SBLC. Now, there are few terms which can be disregarded or which have a specific meaning, which are covered in this article. Let's look at those terms. Next is 1.10b. What it says, let's try to understand it with an example. The SBLC says this SBLC is payable upon presentation of demand and/or invoice by the beneficiary. You are writing and as well as you are using the word or. This means the beneficiary can present either only a demand and I have to pay, or beneficiary can present just the invoice and I have to pay, or beneficiary can present demand plus invoice and I have to pay. This payment will be done if these respective documents are complying with the SBLC terms and conditions. But since you are using the word and separated by an or slash and using the word or, this means either this document or this document alone or both of them combined. If they are presented which are in line with the SBLC terms and conditions, payment will be made. The part C says there are few terms which, if mentioned, the undertaking will be disregarded, simply disregarded, which are callable, divisible, fractionable, indivisible and transmissible. If any of these words are mentioned, the undertaking, that this undertaking is callable, this undertaking is divisible, this undertaking is fractionable, you will completely disregard because they have no meaning. Next part deals with few terms which will have a meaning depending on the wording of the undertaking. So, what are these terms? These are assignable, evergreen, reinstate and revolving. Now, let's look at what do we mean by reinstate and revolving, or for that matter evergreen. Suppose you have applicant, beneficiary and bank. SBLC is issued. Now this SBLC is covering a continuous kind of an obligation wherein applicant will keep on supplying, for example, iron ore. This will be 50 metric ton of iron ore, for example. Price will be $1 million. This 50 metric ton will be supplied in every 2 months. So the initial undertaking is issued covering this obligation, number 1, for this much amount and validity of 2 months. Now this contract is for say 16 months. That means this activity will keep on going, will keep on revolving 8 times. This task will revolve 8 times. So after every revolution, what can happen is this undertaking will be reset to the original value. So if suppose beneficiary draws in this undertaking within these 2 months, beneficiary has withdrawn $600,000. Now the leftover amount is $400,000. This is left. Once this 2 months period ends, this 400 will be reinstated to 1 million. This is what is meant by reinstatement. Okay. Next is revolving. Revolving means this cycle will continue for say 8 revolutions. So revolving will be more concerned with the timeline. This undertaking is revolving in nature, so this undertaking will revolve 8 times so as to complete the contractual obligations. This undertaking will reinstate after every revolution, means after every 2 months period the amount will be reset to the original value. So as and when your undertaking's wording will be drafted, accordingly these terms will have their specific meaning. Alright. So friends, here we complete our training session. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, please press on the like button. Have a great day. Thank you.